Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the chief sponsor of this bill, Mr. Byrne.
The gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the chairwoman for her leadership on this issue and for continued leadership of our committee. Mr. Speaker, today is a big day. Today is an opportunity for this House to stand up for our nation's workers and to protect the small local businesses which form the backbone of the American economy. Today is about restoring decades-old labor law. Ultimately, today is about giving clarity to workers and job creators all across our country. I've heard from our friends across the aisle that somehow someone can be an employee without there being an employer. I call that the immaculately conceived employee. There is no such thing under the law, nor has there ever been. This bill does not change the definition of employer. It simply takes the definition of joint employer back to the way it was a few years ago. It's a shame that we're even having to have this bill. But the activist National Labor Relations Board in 2015 issued a decision that fundamentally upended labor law as we knew it. This change didn't come through the democratically elected Congress, but instead from a panel of unelected bureaucrats. The NLRB's decision and the resulting regulatory agenda have caused deep uncertainty among job creators. For workers, they are left to wonder who their boss really is. That is an incredibly confusing situation to be in. Under the new joint employer standard, what does it mean to have, quote, indirect or, quote, potential control over an employee? I practiced labor and employment law for decades, and I do not know what that means. So I can only imagine the confusion Main Street businesses are faced due to this standard. Currently, there are at least 9 different legal tests nationwide to determine joint employer status under the Fair Labor Standards Act, and more to come. This patchwork of standards creates regulatory uncertainty, especially for job creators doing businesses in multiple states. So despite what some on the other side want to believe, this is not an abstract issue. I visited numerous local businesses in my district, and they're very worried about this scheme. I've heard from workers who want to remain an employee of a locally owned business with an owner who knows them instead of becoming just another employee in some large corporation. Clearly, I'm not the only one who heard these concerns. This legislation is co-sponsored by 123 of my colleagues, including members from both sides of the aisle. This is a bipartisan issue because it isn't about politics. Instead, it's about saving jobs and supporting locally owned businesses. And let me make something crystal clear. This bill does not remove a single protection for today's workforce. Despite the scare tactics being used by big labor bosses and their trial lawyer friends, the same important protections exist under this legislation, and any irresponsible employer can be held accountable. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge all of my colleagues to take the side of our locally owned businesses, to take the side of our small business job creators, and to take the side of America's workers. Let's end the confusion. Let's pass the Save Local Business Act. And